Picture this. It's July 2020, and we're a couple of months into the whole global shutdown thing with no relief in sight. Most of us are still working from home. Retail and restaurant workers are being furloughed or let go. Students are still in that online learning thing, and families are figuring out how to manage that and receiving federal stimulus checks to keep food on the table. The world is turned utterly upside down, and it feels like a science fiction movie, thanks to a highly contagious virus that we're still all too familiar with today. Now let me ask you this. If you recall how uncertain we all felt at that time, and I know many would prefer not to, would you think to yourself, wow, now is a perfect time to make a major career change? Probably not. During what many of us have heard or referred to as unprecedented times, our instinct was to stay put, don't move, hunker down. Well, call me crazy, and my kids and my husband actually do, but it just so happens that I made a call to leave behind a 20-year-plus career at Dell Technologies and take some time off, only to decide to join Insight to lead our North American business about a month later. What an incredible opportunity that was. My Dell friends and mentors, my sister and brother, and everybody wanted to know the real story. Was I fired? Did something really bad happen? Even my husband, who is the best, said, well, okay, glad you gave me a couple weeks' notice. Many of my colleagues thought, wasn't this such a weird time to make such a big move? Yeah, it's true. The market was taking a nosedive, and pretty fast. And yes, in a phenomenon still not fully understood, toilet paper and hand sanitizer became precious trade commodities as supply chains were crippled. In our own industry, chips shortages made everything from laptops to automobiles all the more valuable, something that is likely to continue for a little while longer. Particularly here in the U.S., we're experiencing heartbreaking political and social unrest, the likes of which we hadn't seen since the Civil Rights Movement in the 1960s. In general, the human spirit was taking an absolute beating. All these things are true about our recent times, but here's what I also find to be true. And these principles are tried and tested time and again. Change is constant. Change waits for no one. And change is necessary to keep growing. It pushes us into uncomfortable situations. And that's not a bad thing, as long as we stay flexible. I want to talk to you today about just that, how to be an adaptive leader. And there have been 3 fundamental truths that I live by to handle change effectively in this regard. The first is simple and kind of weird. Paint the bathrooms. Bear with me. I'll get to that and what I mean by that in a couple minutes. The other 2 guiding principles I want to discuss are embracing diversity and being committed to lifelong learning. For me personally, these principles have taken many forms and served me pretty well. Early on, it meant pushing through the fears of the imposter syndrome as a completely inexperienced plant manager leading a team of UAW, United Auto Workers employees. It meant moving from working at a diesel engine manufacturer and joining the tech industry around the time of the dot-com bubble burst. Or, even now in my current role, working to bring Insight into an industry-recognized solutions integrator status. I've learned that we need to not only get comfortable with tolerating change, but over time we actually relish it, love it, embrace it. So whether you consider yourself to be an individual contributor or you're leading a large global team, it makes no difference. Adaptive leadership will benefit you throughout your career, no matter what you do or where you go. Today I'm going to share with you just a couple of lessons I learned along the way that may be helpful as you lead your organization through some pretty unusual and challenging circumstances. So let's get started. Okay, this first story is admittedly an odd one, I realize, but think about this as a euphemism for respect. I like to tell this story because so much of leading through change is about the simple stuff. Authentically connecting with your teams, understanding what they value and need, and then demonstrating to your people that they are important. This was the very first piece of advice I got from the crustiest of plant managers as I took on the role as the youngest plant manager at Cummins Engine Company. By the way, there were 75 plants. 2 were led by women, and no woman had ever led our plant in Cookeville, Tennessee, I might add. I arrived at the plant after leading our logistics operation in Brussels, Belgium. Talk about culture shock. I was eminently qualified for this job, though, of course, since I'd been working with the plant, mostly complaining about their lead times and their order accuracy. And then, plus I'd been to business school, so I learned a thing or two there, and I'd been on a plant tour once. So what more do you need? Cookeville had been in operation for 70 years and was one of 3 plants out of 75 that was represented by the United Auto Workers Union. By the way, the president of the UAW was named Rocky, which I should have taken as forewarning from the universe as to what kind of experience we would have in store, at least at the beginning of our relationship. During my first meeting with Rocky and his team, I took really copious notes, even though I honestly could understand only about every other word. These guys were from Central Tennessee, and that is a very different English from the English I was listening to in Brussels, Belgium. I pored over the financials, the process maps. I worked hard as I prepared for this job. And as I thought about what I was about to do, I called the guy I knew who had been running plants at Cummins forever. He led that plant tour I referenced earlier. I said, "John, I love this opportunity, but I have no idea what to do next." John was a man of very few words, and all he said to me at that time was, "Just paint the bathrooms, Joyce." Needless to say, I left that conversation feeling a little bit uninspired. I expected him to give me some hints about key processes, partners to watch out for, or at a minimum, some guidance on which people in the plant could help me. The next day, as I walked the floor, I stopped by the women's restroom. I was appalled, actually. It was old and dirty, not unsanitary, but the paint was peeling, the faucets were rusty, and tiles were cracked. By the way, I probably would have never in a million years thought to step into that bathroom had John not suggested this. Then it hit me. Every day our teammates went into that bathroom and were reminded, however subtly, that we, the leadership team or maybe the broad management team, didn't value them enough to ensure that something as simple as making sure the bathrooms were clean and modern and efficient were in place. I didn't have the budget, but I asked our facilities team to get quotes that day, and within 2 months we'd fixed up the bathrooms. Didn't take much. Little bit of paint, a couple new toilets, we fixed the broken tile, but the message to our employees was unmistakable. You are important. Rocky was not sure at all what to make of all this. At our next all-manager meeting, one of the managers asked him what he thought the rank and file would say about the improved facilities, and he said, "You get a girl in here running the plant. First she paints the bathrooms. Next thing you know, she'll be hanging curtains." I'm not even kidding. And did this help the productivity of the plant? Super hard to say, but I will say this. We passed the first ever extended labor contract in Tennessee about 9 months later. While I certainly can't attribute that to the paint or the tiles, I do think it has an awful lot to do with demonstrating respect for the team that does the real hard work every single day. And here's another layer to that everyday respect. What about diversity, equity, and inclusion? I referred to it earlier, but wow, we've seen some very raw and real fallout in our nation centered on racial inequality in particular. On the positive side, it has brought to light a number of ways that we can work together to do better. I have to believe that this awakening has spawned an even greater focus and motivation to ensure we treat every teammate every day with the respect they deserve. It hasn't always been this way. During my time at Dell, I was really proud to work with a couple of my friends and colleagues to start the employee resource group WISE. It stood for Women in Search of Excellence. Back then, one of the most senior leaders let us know that he was very concerned that our primary focus was going to be on putting on-site daycare at our location. In fact, we were focused on negotiating skills development, expanding our recruiting capabilities, sponsorship, mentorship, and as well as community service. We've come a long way since then, but we know there's still a lot of work to be done. No organization is perfect, and this is all an ongoing area of learning for all of us. But Insight has placed more emphasis on our commitment to diversity and inclusion than ever before. We've currently got teammate resource groups founded and led by some of our very own teammates of all races, genders, sexual orientation, ethnic backgrounds, ability, disability, across all spectrums, veteran status, and more. We've given them a platform, a little bit of support, and they're using their voices and their creativity to make the changes that we need to make at our company so that we're better. And so that everyone feels comfortable bringing their full selves to work every day at Insight. And we can't discount the other aspects of diversity. We are so fortunate to work at a global Fortune 360 company where we have geographic diversity spanning multiple cultures. We're a global organization run by globally diverse teammates, and there's no argument that it makes us infinitely better. We're able to look at any given challenge through a variety of different lenses, and our end results are collaborative and thorough. And this is a true gift and a differentiator for Insight. And just like we continue to do better and learn in the areas of diversity, equity, and inclusion, it is so important to keep learning and growing and working on ourselves. Don't skimp on this. It will absolutely make you a better leader. I say to our team every day, we have to get 10% smarter every year. We have to get 10% faster. So read books, listen to podcasts, listen to your teammates, get training. I'm about 4 weeks into my tenure as Insight's new global CEO. So the book I'm reading right now, again, is called First 90 Days. I'm also reading a really cool book called Death by Meeting. We've got to eliminate a lot of meetings at Insight. And it can't be all work and no play, so I'm also reading Cloud Cuckoo Land, a fictional book that captures the magic of childhood. You're never too old, by the way, to revisit your youth and remind yourself of the sense of optimism and resiliency we had when we were young. And it also portrays a really frightening and potentially exciting future. These are traits you should never, ever lose. And I also listen to many daily podcasts. These are just a few of the ways I try to stay current and keep my skills sharp. Beyond the personal growth and development you can pursue on your own, take advantage of the training and career progression opportunities at your company. At Insight, we invest in our teammates to help them their growth and help them identify their advancement paths in their careers. And like me, making that jump from the manufacturing industry into technology way back when, we understand that growth doesn't always happen in a linear fashion. Instead, it takes unexpected turns as our personal and professional interests and circumstances change. At Insight, we view career development as a career lattice. No one career path is perfect or right for everyone, but rather there are many ways to advance. And one of the ways we do this is through a diversity and inclusion group mentorship program. We know pouring into our teammates in these ways broadens their experience and benefits our position in the marketplace. It's a win-win all the way. And regardless of whether your organization offers something like this, the principle still applies. You only really grow when you put yourself into new situations and get to know people whose circles you don't normally run in. And honestly, speaking of that, I probably learn the most from my kids. New words, new methods of improving productivity, new ways of thinking about how to look at problems and solving them. They teach me a lot every single day. Don't limit yourselves by what you already know. So I hope these few points have spurred some ideas. Try it out. Put one of them into action and just test and learn in your own work environment. What would happen if you got to know what motivates your direct reports, peers, or even your boss and made the effort to show them that you value what they care about most? Painting the bathrooms may not be how you do that, but I would bet there's a figurative cracked mirror or two that you can address and that you can use to strengthen relationships and adapt as a leader. And be an ally. Get involved. Start your own teammate or employee resource group to celebrate and champion diversity and inclusion in your own environment. Or at the very least, consider joining one and expanding your perspective. And never stop learning. Find some good books or podcasts or teammates or people to feed your mind so you can continue on your career journey. You'll never regret it. Finally, remember, there will never be a comfortable time to make a leap.